on September 24th. And the first item was the PSU Office of Internal Audits review, 3-year peer review by the IIA, which I can't remember what it stands for. But the IIA did give our audit office the highest possible marks, and so we weren't surprised, but we were pleased to have that outside validation. Then after that, our auditor, Dave Terry, gave us a review of his ongoing audit projects. Then, as Isabel mentioned in her comments, the committee discussed the timing of a potential presidential search, and I think came to the unanimous conclusion that nobody was eager to rush headlong into a search at this point. We need a stabilizing number of months ahead of us, and I think that the I will say relaxed time frame is going to give us an opportunity to incorporate into our thinking the work that the Faculty Senate is doing in rethinking the administration. So very timely, very relevant. The committee talked with President Percy on a preliminary basis about his goals for the upcoming year, and we are going to take that up again at our Executive and Audit Committee meeting in November. But those goals are underway, and we'll talk a little bit more about one of them later in the meeting. And after that, it was housekeeping. So, does anybody else on the Executive and Audit Committee meeting have anything to say that I might have missed? Irving?
No.
Okay. Anybody? No. All right. Fantastic. So, Finance and Administration.
We met a few weeks ago. Pinch hitting for Kevin Reynolds was Andrea Johnson, who did a wonderful job. The first order of business there was to reformulate the Finance and Administration Committee. So sharing the joy of being on this committee are Ben Berry, Sho DeZono, Pete Nickerson, Lisa Sablon, Wally Van Valkenburg, and Greg Hinckley is ex officio. We reviewed the fourth quarter results, in which semester hours were down for the year 1.7%, but precipitously down in summer, about 10%, I think the number was. Our expenses were also down about $18 million, which were added to reserves. This is a very mixed bag. It's good news in terms of building up our reserve and showing good financial discipline by the team. It's bad news in terms of funding the very needed things that we cannot because we're being so tight with the budget. Our reserves now stand at $49 million. That shows general reserve, that is, and that shows good movement in that respect, but we're not where we need to be in terms of the goals that we've set. We also reviewed capital projects. In particular, there's a vote today on deferred maintenance bonds issued by the state. Our committee went through that in some detail and are recommending that this be approved by the board today. We also had a presentation by the, I want to get the name right, the Public University Fund. And they manage short-term cash reserves and needed funds for the school. They had a very positive outcome this year, and so it meant that we have a paper gain of a few $million, which is very helpful. We also talked about what lies ahead in the future by management there. The one item that we talked about that's of interest to me is that we agreed that there ought to be some training for board members in the remarkable complexities of the budget and finance of this university. And so staff is putting together a a set of tutorials based on what we think are the most critical aspects of that, which will be shared with as many board members as would like to attend. I think that covers it, but Kevin, Andrea, if you're here, if there's anything to add, then I'll take questions.
Questions for Irving? No? All right, then Christine, moving on to academic and student affairs.
So our committee met on the 24th of September, and it was really an excellent meeting, totally centered on, or mostly centered on student success and what's happening at the university with regard to those initiatives. Michelle Topi gave us a report of the visit that several of the folks made to University of South Florida, which has made great improvements in their student retention and graduation rates, and came away with a lot of good ideas on how we can adopt some of those, some of their ideas. We also had a report on the Transfer and Returning Students Center, which is a great center. You know, so many of our students are transfer students, more than half, and that center will be so helpful to those students to complete their education here and go on. And I won't go into a lot of detail about what we discussed because I think Michelle's going to speak a little later, but we also took a tour of the new Massey Hall, the remodeled Massey Hall, and the Advising Center and Career Center and the student centers that are just across the breezeway from that. And if any of the trustees have not seen that, gone over there to visit the hall, I was just blown away. I mean, it's a beautiful building, and to have all those centers together for our students, sort of one-stop shopping for them to be helped in any way they need, finance, career planning, any of their needs are pretty much right in one place, and I think that's a big step to student success here on campus. I think that's my report. Like I said, we'll hear from Michelle a little bit later.
Questions for Christine? No?
I want to make a comment. Since I got my master's 51 years ago from PSU, that building is wonderful.
Truly is. Anyone else? All right. So before we move into the consent agenda, Dr. Percy has one more addition to his president's report.
One among the other accomplishments I should have mentioned to be sure was that we completed successfully negotiations with our SIEU union and came to a collective bargaining decision that was agreeable to all parties. We were very glad to move forward at the start of the year on a very strong note, and very much appreciate all the classified staff who are part of that union and do so much to help propel PSU's mission forward. And we're also in the earlier stages, but definitely into the work of collective bargaining with our AAUP, which is our faculty and academic professional union.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments? No, thank you. Good. So that moves us to our consent agenda. There are two items on the consent agenda: the approval of the minutes from the June 20th board meeting, and also approval of a resolution approving issuance of an Oregon general obligation bond for capital improvement. So the consent agenda, so I'd entertain a motion or discussion.
Madam Chair, I have one amendment to propose. That's at the top of page 2. It refers to one Mac McClellan. It should be Mark McClellan. He's since departed the university, but I'd like the record to reflect his name properly. If that's changed, then I would propose that we adopt the entire consent agenda.
Well, thank you for reading every word of the minutes.
I second.
All right, excellent. Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, terrific. Passed unanimously. And so there have been a couple of references this morning to our next agenda item, which is the student success presentation that will be given to us by Michelle Topi and Kurt Kelly. And I will just say that this is something that is very exciting and critical. So with that, and yeah, thank you. That's just what I was going to say. Oh, and Jose, thank you very much. All right, carry on.
All right, I'm going to kick this off. I am Kurt Kelly. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at Portland State University. Chairperson Patrick, members of the board, colleagues, communities, and guests. It's a pleasure today to talk about student success. Provost Jeffers would like to be here today to give this presentation, so hopefully we are okay standing in her place. So anyways, I think it's important to start this out by talking, how many of you have heard the term student success before? Okay.